Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Madeline.
I'm Julian.
And I'm Emilio. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. And you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at the handle Sleepless Cinematic Pod.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release one-off bonus episodes as we see fit. While we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, foregoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we continue our current cycle related to audience interrogation films with a category we call Suggestion Box, where one of us elects a film for the group to discuss. At least one of us will be seeing this movie for the first time, and differing opinions may or may not be held among us.
And for this episode, that film is Bamboozled, the Spike Lee film from the year 2000. This is an often overlooked film in the Spike Lee canon, but those who are in the know, and I think we would all consider ourselves among that know now, would consider it, at the very least, a very engaging film, an audacious film as well, with a lot of very intricate discourse to go along with it.
And this discussion is a long time coming. We have discussed, the possibility of bringing this up for a long time.
That's true. In fact, I think the last time we had our guest on, this movie came up. And our guest today is one of the most unstoppably creative people I know. I first had the pleasure of meeting him and learning from him when he was a teaching artist at Young Chicago Authors, which was a writing enrichment program back in the early 2000s. He is on a short list of educators who gave me perspective and tangible hope for a life in the arts. I will always be grateful to him for that. He is an accomplished playwright with over 60 original plays to his name. He's a fantastic breakbeat poet. He's a published author with a young adult novel entitled King of the Neuroverse on the way. And he is lined up to join the faculty at Arizona State University this upcoming year as an associate professor of dramatic writing. The last time he joined us, we dug into the 1997 political satire Wag the Dog. Listeners, I highly recommend checking that one out if you haven't yet. We're back today to talk about another satire, and although that very word is literally defined for us in the first minute of this film, I think Spike Lee and anyone who has seen this film would tell you that it's hard to just rely on dictionary definitions to explain what Bamboozled is all about. I'm personally so grateful to be able to check back in with him, and we as a podcast are delighted to have him back. Idris Goodwin, welcome back to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast.
Yes,
welcome.
Indeed. Thanks for having me back, guys. I love it. Anytime you call, anytime you need me.
We just put up the bat signal, man. And
For real. I love this stuff all day. Let's go.
Yeah, as soon as we kind of landed on this and this cycle, we were like, well, we have to call Idris.
Yeah.
He's the guest.
I would have tuned in even if you would have called somebody else, but I also definitely would have been like,
hey.
y'all know you got my email.
Idris, I feel like you've had a really busy year since we last had you on the pod.
Yeah, a lot of transition. As you mentioned before, I actually teach my first class at ASU Monday. Next week.
Wow, congrats.
Cool,
yeah,
man.
I'm teaching 2 classes and the book. I mean, you said it all, Emilio. But just constantly moving, and I just think growth. I'm about growth and evolution, and that's just what I'm here to do. So I can't sit still, and I don't think I'm put here to do that. I think I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to keep moving.
I love that. That's so cool. Well, as we said, we are here to talk Bamboozled. And while this movie has embedded in it some commentary about hip-hop music and hip-hop culture, this is not to be confused with boom bap, the subgenre and production style of hip-hop typically identified with late 80s, early 90s East Coast. Low end on 1 and 3, snappy snare sound on 2 and 4. Think Wu-Tang Clan, Tribe Called Quest, Mobb Deep, this subgenre not to be confused with the film Bamboozled.
That is very true. And although this film centers around a Black writer and their desperate attempts to break into mainstream television and compromising their values along the way, this film is not to be confused with the book Colored Television by Danzy Senna, which was published last year, which I read earlier this year. And I think I can definitely see Bamboozled being a huge inspiration for this film, even though the trajectories are pretty different. I can see shared DNA in these for sure.
Very cool.
Interesting.
I like
And though it has a very particular cadence to its title, Bamboozled is not to be confused with a different film from the same year that sounds very similar in name, Bedazzled.
I love this. Okay. All right. Sorry. Keep going.
I think, when you get to content, these movies couldn't be more different.
Yeah. Definitely
Bedazzled
not.
is a fantasy romantic comedy film directed by Harold Ramis, starring Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley. A remake of a 1967 British film of the same name that is a comic retelling of The Legend of Faust. Thank you, Wikipedia, for basically feeding those words to me.
Has anybody here seen Bedazzled?
No. But
On
it's
a plane.
On a plane.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I've seen
Sounds
both
like
versions.
a good plane movie.
Oh, cool. Both
nice.
versions. All right.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shared letters between these titles, but also it's the same year, 2000.
That's true.
There we go. So
Yes.
not to be confused. Absolutely.
I mean, in Bamboozled is, definitely not to be confused with another title that shares two long O sounds. And that is, it is not to be confused with Zoolander,
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
the ubiquitous fashion model comedy by the great Ben Stiller.
Yeah, that's 1 year after Bamboozled.
Glad we could clear that up.
Yeah, I know.
two O's and a Z in the name.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I have
How did I miss this? It's all about the O's. to me
you
here.
brought up Ben Stiller. I've thought about him a lot lately, partially
too.
because of Severance
Yeah.
being current, but also because when people talk about great satires, and I imagine there are in general some mixed feelings about this one, but Tropic Thunder often comes up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was like, to me, the best thing about that Happy Gilmore sequel.
Haven't seen it yet.
Haven't seen it
Just
yet.
the sight of him in his costume and outfit. Like, that's the Ben Stiller I like.
Yeah.
I
The,
like
like,
when he's just
mid-90s.
like a goofy character. Tropic Thunder, too, to me was like like, I want another. I think we're all kind of hungry, actually, right now in culture for
Yeah.
Ben to just, get out. No more Meet the Parents.
Yeah,
kind of
no.
stuff.
They're
Like,
already.
put on a goofy wig and
Yeah.
Oh, I have to say too, while we're talking about Ben Stiller, that I always enjoy his turns in like Noah Baumbach movies, like the sort of like
oh, yeah.
indie dramas about middle-aged adults.
Mhm.
Like I haven't
Mhm.
seen Greenberg yet. I've heard it's very good, but the Meyerowitz stories, which fun fact was partially shot on my college campus while I was a student there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I walked past the set on more than one occasion as he and Adam Sandler was in that movie too, as they were just out there
Yeah.
filming scenes.
I love that movie, actually. I think that movie's underrated.
I agree.
I think that movie's fantastic.
Yeah, probably underrated because it went straight to Netflix and didn't really get much of a theatrical run, but
Which
Agreed.
is what it has in common with Happy Gilmore too.
true.
Yeah, that's true.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Bringing it back
Emilio.
around.
Yeah, there
Bro.
we go.
Yeah.
Wow. I taught you well.
Exactly. Anybody else have any one of these?
I mean, the low-hanging fruit is don't put this on if you mean to watch Bambi.
That's a very good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
No.
More than one title in this case that phonetically sounds kind of similar, but content-wise could not be more different.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I'm sure you all had this similar response, but I for sure was like, oh, American fiction.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, there's
Great
so
point.
much that American fiction borrows from this movie.
Yeah,
For sure.
It's like a slightly more dialed down
Yeah.
kind of satire. But similar thing is De La, like comes up with something that he thinks is going to be so offensive that everyone's going to be shocked, and instead they love it.
Yeah.
Now what do? You're that whole chestnut, which is also Sullivan's Travels in a way. It kind of leads itself
yeah.
to
Yeah.
Preston Sturges and that kind of concept too, which is really interesting. But I was thinking of that movie the whole time watching it, and just thinking about how much the filmmakers, were conscious of this movie or not, or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great connection. And the novel that movie is based on came out very close in time to Bamboozled, too. The novel's called Erasure. It came out
That's right. It's
2001.
Yeah, that's what's his name?
Percival Everett.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't read the book.
How interesting.
I'd certainly like to.
Just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
Forgot that he wrote that.
But while we're on the topic of American fiction, I remember that movie came out close to 2 years ago now. And I made like a personal note of it being a number of movies that came out within a short span that all were kind of on this theme that we're organizing our current batch of episodes, audience interrogation. Like it's certainly present in American fiction. At that time, I remember it was like a big element of like The Zone of Interest or Killers of the Flower Moon.
Totally.
Also the David Fincher movie, The Killer, all of which came out within a few months of each other.
And we also are going to talk Civil War.
Yeah.
Which also came out around the same time.
A little later, but yeah. Oh, and we did talk about May, December, also came out around the same
time.
Oh,
yeah. But we're not talking about those movies today.
Yeah.
We are talking Bamboozled.
So, Emilio, do you want to do your best to tell us what is Bamboozled about?
I will do my best. It's around 2000, and we are introduced to Pierre Delacroix, a frustrated black writer for the CNS television network. He is struggling to get the scripts he writes centering black characters approved for pilot season and has a contentious relationship with his culturally insensitive boss, Thomas Dunwitty. Eager to break from his contract, he conjures up a plan that he is sure will get him fired. Write a show so offensive, so culturally retrograde, that his bosses will have no choice but to let him go. With a pair of talented and hungry street performers in tow, Womack with his gift of gab, and Man Ray, a savant tapper, Pierre helms Mantan, the new Millennium Minstrel Show. To his confusion, Dunwitty and his bosses greenlight the show, and to his surprise and dismay, Mantan becomes a massive hit with audiences and critics. While Pierre balances his professional success with his growing concerns about the show, Mantan sets off an alarming acceptance for disturbing black stereotypes, which draws the ire of a black militant rap group called the Mau Maus, who conspire to bring harm to those behind the show. The toothpaste can't go back in the toothpaste tube on this one, and the creatives associated face the realities that they hold responsibility and blame for the awful images that they're disseminating.
Wow.
Well said.
I mean,
damn.
This is a really tricky movie to talk about.
Yeah.
But
to summarize.
It's a tricky movie to summarize. It's a tricky movie to talk about, but I really can't wait. I mean, I was the one who was pushing for us to talk about this movie, but as we said at the top, the key kind of unlocked on this one when we were talking Wag the Dog a year ago, and Idris, you were like, I love this movie. And I heard that and I was like, dude, I love this movie too. What is this movie to you? What's your personal connection to it?
Oh, Lordy, Lord, I'm going to try to try to truncate this as best I can.
Cook, man, just go for it. You're good.
So listen, I came up in the time of Spike Lee. Like, I was born in 1977, this perfect storm confluence of cable television and increased access, this black renaissance of hip hop and hip hop music and music videos and sports. And you got Mike Tyson, you got Michael Jordan, you got Michael Jackson, you got Prince, and you got Spike Lee, who is like the first significant black filmmaker to come along since like Melvin Van Peebles,
right?
You know?
Probably.
Like a real auteur, like R. Martin Scorsese, you know, and he's but he's so of the hip hop generation because he's a character too. He's in front of, you know, he's
Mars Blackman.
So
yeah,
Mars Blackman, for crying out loud. So first and foremost, it's like when Spike's got something new, it's like seeing a relative. It's like it's deep, you know, like it's an event. When Spike drops a movie, it's an event. I just saw Highest to Lowest in the theater opening weekend because you got to go support the black movie when it come out, you know.
Still need to see
and so it was interesting to
yeah.
rewatch this, having just watched that. But anyway, so this movie comes out. It's 2000, and I'm living in Chicago. You know, I'm a cinephile, but I'm also doing a lot of live performing. You know, when I'm also in this world of hip hop, and I'm in this world of very militant, you know, ginseng root chewing, boot wearing, you know. so definitely, and I'm an aspiring black artist who's navigating this conundrum of, we come from people who are about upward mobility and getting you out of the hood and all this kind of stuff. But then there's this cultural cachet, this cultural currency that Black folks have in America that is super rooted to the streets, to urban life, to urban cool, and all of that. And this is not a new argument. This is not a new anxiety. This is not a new thing. This conversation around what does it mean to be Black, what is Blackness, and the double consciousness of, how we quote unquote shuck and jive in front of the master to keep to bring their defenses down. And then what happens when we're out of the white gaze, and how do we talk to each other outside of that, right? So similarly, what is the art we want to make? What are the jokes we tell when it's just us? And then what are the jokes we tell when white folk are around? And also, this is one of the first major, this is one of the films shot on digital video, like this burgeoning sort of format. And so just as the movie has got this thing around, it very much knows it's 2000. It very much knows it's in the new millennium. It very much knows there's something exciting in technological advancements. It also knows that it's weighted down by legacy and tradition. And so, and then if you think about where we are now, the fact that Spike Lee's new movie is coming out on Apple TV, a computer software company's streaming service, and it's it's only going on movies, only in theaters, just in case it maybe wants to be Academy eligible. So I'll stop there, but I'll just say, there was so much connection to this movie for me on a personal level. Like, this was my life in a lot of ways. Like, I was all of these people. There's parts of me that are Pierre. There are parts of me that are definitely Julius, aka Big Black Africa. There are parts of me that are Sloan, who's just trying to get to work and whatever. There's part of me that are Womack and Mantan. Like, like it really, it looks at all the different, and this is what Spike's very good at. He knows his people so well that he knows our points of views and our anxieties, and that is ultimately what all his films are about. Is about these conversations, these unanswerable questions and struggles that we as a people have. I think are universal. I think that all people have, in terms of questions about, what are the choices I make? What are my values? What am I about? Who am I? I think that's universal, but from a very distinctly contemporary Black American lens.
Yeah, I love that. Wow.
Yeah, there was somewhere in, I think it was one of the bonus features on the Criterion DVD, there was a critic at the time who was in favor of the film, because this was notably a very polarizing movie amongst critics. Mm-hmm. This critic had said that there was a transcendent humanism to Spike Lee's work, which I absolutely agree with, and I think you put it really well, Idris, that it comes from a very distinct point of view. But I think that there is something very, like, if you're willing to submit to it, something very far-reaching about his message in this film, in many of his films.
Yeah. So, Emilio, you've had a history with this film as well. So do you want to tell us a little bit about when you first came to this film?
Sure, I can get into that. It's a little bit of a soliloquy, but I'll go for it.
That's fine.
Yeah, I have some very strong memories of seeing ads for this. Idris, you're going to know about the Tempo section in the Chicago Tribune. I remember seeing the illustrated child in the watermelon patch and Tommy Davidson and Savion Glover in blackface, and thinking it felt really wrong. Like, I felt like I was looking at something that I shouldn't have been looking at. That's my first initial exposure to Bamboozled as like something out there in the world. It took me about 6 or 7 years to see it. I ended up seeing it in college. Gotta say, I didn't really think much of it in college. I think I just was not in a good headspace for it. But I saw it again about 8 years later. So this is like maybe like 2014 or so. That second viewing really clicked for me in a much bigger way. Like, this movie just kind of lodged itself in my brain as one of those movies that just was very maximalist. Like, it had so much going on, so it kind of stayed there. And then I would say about 4 years ago, I saw it again. It was on the Criterion channel, and I was crying at the end of this movie, just like full on sobbing. And I think some of the stuff that I felt was a kind of messy about the movie, this rush just come over me that was just like, none of that is important. Like, what this movie is getting at is vital, absolutely vital. For the Black community, but also just for like humanity, which I think, as you said, Idris, too, is like one of Spike's great gifts. Julian, you mentioned that as well. I mean, this is such an uncomfortable movie to watch. I will say that. But I got to say, every time I finish watching it, and I've seen it maybe about 4 or 5 times now, I have the like Pedro Almodovar response to Written on the Wind, which is, I can't wait to see this movie again.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it. It just pushes buttons for me. And we're talking about audience interrogation. This is audience interrogation for me of the highest order. And I will say, on a personal note, my growing appreciation for this movie has also paralleled my own evolving feelings about representation a little bit more broadly in the media. I don't usually talk about this on this podcast, but like I'll mention a little bit now. Like, I come from a very proud Latino family, but I was never really part of a strong Latino community. So I really conditioned myself to not look for people like myself in others and not look for myself in the media. Like, the idea of media representation was actually something I put very little stock in personally. And I kind of felt like if it wasn't there, it wasn't a big deal. So Bamboozled, along with a couple of other films, is in a really special class of movie because I think it really asked me to consider how media representation was contributing to my perception of others, like to the behavior that I found funny or compelling. And also, and most importantly or most saliently for me, was my own self-image, like how important or not important I felt I could be in the world. Because I didn't think that it mattered if I saw myself in other Latinos, like, you know, whether they're like big goofs with painted freckles dressed as kids, you know, like that's a trope, or if they were great role models, like moving virtuously in the world. And because I felt like I was always shielding myself from the influence of the former, I don't think I ever really made room for the latter as a positive influence. And when that dawned on me, it was very profound. And I credit Bamboozled with that. It's a deeply uncomfortable, complicated, very messy movie, but what this movie presents and asks you to reckon with makes it, in my opinion, just like one of the essential American movies of the last 25 years.
Wow.
That was very beautiful.
Absolutely. That's tough to follow.
I mean, anyone that hasn't seen this movie, the two of you have absolutely convinced anyone to go watch it, between Emilio and Idris.
Yeah.
Well, it was a new film for you guys.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a movie that, as much as it was polarizing at the time, and I think anybody that sees it has a pretty strong reaction to it in some way, I feel like it's a movie that's not talked about that much anymore.
No. Yeah.
And so it's not a movie that I was particularly familiar with other than just the title. I think when it was originally brought up, when you brought it up, Idris, when you were here for Wag the Dog, I think I maybe only knew it by title, and I don't think I was familiar with what the content was going to be. But I was really captivated by this film, and I'm really glad to have finally gotten to it. Dougie was really excited to watch it because it's been on his list for a long time. So I'm really excited to dive into it. But yeah, this is not a film that I have ever really heard people talk about, and I find that very odd. But also not.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
How about you, Julian?
Well, obviously, having only just seen it for the first time, I was and still am in a similar position to you, Madeline. I remember in the early days of this podcast that we assembled. We don't use it as much, but we still have this massive spreadsheet where we just kind of logged things that we had seen and our general opinions of them, as well as things we hadn't seen. And I remember, Emilio, you placed Bamboozled on that list. And I think that, like, even before that point, I was very keyed into Spike Lee as an essential cultural figure, you know, beyond even just being a filmmaker. I had seen a lot of his movies before then, you know, so I was already totally bought into the legendary status of Spike Lee. But still, when you mentioned Bamboozled, I thought, never really heard very much about this movie. And I remember it went on the spreadsheet, and you said at the time, Emilio, albeit in much briefer fashion than we are getting into in this episode, that
right.
People overlook that movie. It's worth more engagement than it's often given. And since then, I mean, I kept that in mind, and it's come up a lot already. But Idris, you bringing up that movie when we talked about Wag the Dog, I think confirmed to me that, just to hear it from Emilio and then from you, that this is important. Like just to hear
this is essential viewing,
mm-hmm. To hear it from more than one person, served as a great affirmation. I mean, just the episode before this one, our guest Marquita Reese had some very high praise for the film too.
She literally within arm's reach had the Criterion release of this.
Yeah.
We're like, we're going to talk Bamboozled. And she's like, hello, it's here.
Yeah. And so now here we are 2 years after the inception of this podcast talking about Bamboozled. And I think, it's well known about this movie that there are two great American satires that inspired Spike Lee in the making of it. Mm-hmm. I think the more salient of which is A Face in the Crowd, which he's talked quite a bit about. Yes, and the film is dedicated to the writer of A Face in the Crowd, Bud Schulberg.
I'm glad you caught that. Yeah.
Yes, at the very end of the credits, it shows that. But also that, and fun fact too, A Face in the Crowd is the first movie we covered after we last had you on, Idris.
That's right.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah, and there's that, and the other big inspiration we just covered a few months ago is Network.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I am glad to have seen those movies in the chronological order that they came out.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that I would not have been able to appreciate what Bamboozled had pulled from these movies if I hadn't. I think it increased my appreciation for Bamboozled in general, having that foundational knowledge of those others.
Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah. There's also another film that Spike Lee has talked about quite a bit when he talks about what inspired him. Actually, two. One is The Producers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
He talks about this a lot on the commentary.
Yeah. Which is, I think when you see it, kind of makes sense.
As soon as he said it, I'm like, I didn't think about that, but duh. It's a very similar plot in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Which I think is another gift of Spike's, is that he's able to kind of use existing stuff and put his own spin on it, I think, in really cool ways. And the other film, which I think you've seen, Madeline, Ace in the Hole.
Yeah, that's a great
Kirk
one.
Douglas.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
That is a great movie. And Spike Lee has talked often about how A Face in the Crowd and Ace in the Hole were blank check films from their respective directors that totally flopped when they came out, but have in them
there's staying power.
Yeah, there's a lot of staying power, and they have a lot of insightful things to say about our society and greed and what we do to get ahead.
And that's true of Bamboozled as well.
100%. Yeah.
And this is actually this is a trend amongst some of the movies that we're covering in this episode cycle up to this point. We talked about Blue Velvet 2 episodes ago, which is now a beloved film, but it took some time for it to get there. Then the last episode we just talked about Eddington, which is still out, still in theaters, and
at the time of this recording,
it is currently polarizing.
Yeah, definitely.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's a movie that, like Bamboozled, maybe has its defenders and detractors when it comes out, but has a shelf life and then gains more appreciation over time.
Speaking of when these movies come out, Idris, I feel like you posed a really interesting question to the group about the timing of this film.
Well, yeah, they make such a meal about it being 2000, and I remember certainly in hip hop music in particular, but there was a lot of Y2K stuff. People were really leaning into 2000 is 2000. It was very much from a marketing standpoint. And actually, King of the Neuroverse, my new novel in verse, actually takes place in 1999.
Oh, nice.
And the whole conceit of the book is that this narrator is leaving these tape recordings just in case the stuff he's hearing about Y2K is true, and that everything gets wiped out. He's like, I'm going to tell you future society. So he's talking to the future. That's how he refers in the second person to whoever's listening to him.
I love
anyway,
that.
So
that's awesome.
Was reflecting a lot lately about 2000. And so in a way, the film is kind of playing off of that in the sense of it becomes Pierre is the new millennium. And, it's that using that language, which was very pervasive. He's even sending up our kind of obsession with that. But you also can't not and this is something that can only happen returning in this movie 25 years later.
Yeah.
Where we're aware of everything that's happened since. And so in 2000, if we think about that very precious time, which is like we had 2 Clinton terms, we couldn't fathom an Obama yet. The tragic events of 9/11 haven't happened yet. Black Lives Matter hasn't happened yet. All of that hasn't happened yet. It was like, generally speaking, a seemingly peaceful time. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And you all are younger than I am, so I'm curious about how the film stamps itself, time marks itself, and very intentionally. And how did that go over for you? What did that bring to mind to you? Yeah.
I feel grateful to have come to this movie in a time when it's been, to use a broad term, rediscovered. Actually, in preparation for this conversation, I purchased a book that I had seen on the shelf in the bookshop of one of the great New York City theaters, the Metrograph, which we've praised before on this podcast. It's called Facing Blackness, Media and Minstrelsy in Spike Lee's Bamboozled. The writer of it, Ashley Clark, is a British-American film critic. He actually, on the Criterion edition, there is a conversation between him and Spike Lee recorded in 2019, which I thought was very interesting to watch.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
In the book, Ashley Clark talks about having a pretty similar experience with the film, pretty similar first experience with the film to you, Emilio, where he watched it the first time and the magic of the film had not really hit him yet. And that, it being a movie that was just kind of like middling in overall critical reception, that a lot of people just assumed that it was, a big swing on Spike Lee's part that didn't land. And that he was bought into that for a little while. But the movie lodged itself in his mind. And that he came back to it around a decade after the first experience, and kind of like you were saying too, Emilio, that he was brought to tears by it, and that an important moment in the at least in his understanding of the movie's lineage is that it was included as part of a series at BAM, another great New York City art house theater, in 2015, so 15 years after its release. Spike Lee was present at BAM for a conversation about the movie, and around then is when the tide started to turn.
That's a very appropriate place for Bamboozled to play.
Yeah. Well, also fun fact, for people who don't know the geography of New York City, but Brooklyn in particular, that BAM is kind of across this general square from Spike Lee's production office.
Yeah.
40 Acres and a Mule Filmworks. It's in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. Related fun fact about that, last time we talked about a Spike Lee movie was Mo Better Blues. It was a little more than a year ago. I think we had a great time watching and discussing that movie.
Absolutely.
And Emilio, you talked about having an in-person experience with Spike Lee when you were at NYU there. Since then, I have had an in-person experience with Spike Lee.
Nice.
But it was amusingly inauspicious. There's a bagel shop around the corner from his production office. I was there with my mom one day. We were just getting lunch. We were at an event in the area, just standing online waiting for our orders. And then one of the people who worked there was just shouting out an order that was ready for someone named Lee. And then I turn around and I see Spike Lee coming up to get it.
What's his bagel order, Julian?
I didn't hear that part. Yeah, but it was a moment where, very, very briefly, a ton flashed through my mind where I thought, first it's like, I know that face. And then a second later, that's Spike Lee. And then I also think, yeah, it's around the corner from his office. Of course he'd be getting his bagels here.
You would think he'd send someone, though.
I
like that he's gone out on his own.
He's got his feet on the ground.
I'm just saying,
man.
people at that level of success could just send someone. And he's like, I don't need to do that. I can get my own bagel.
I guarantee he's a sweet bagel guy. I bet he's like one of the, I bet he's like a cinnamon raisin. I bet he's more on the sweet side.
Yeah,
that's cool.
He's not a plain bagel guy. He's not a sesame seed guy, for sure.
Yeah,
I like that.
It was a great moment as a cinephile, great New York moment too.
Heck yeah.
When will my time come?
Yes, Madeline.
We have to cover a third Spike Lee movie so that I can see him.
To get to your question, Idris, I knew after the first viewing that I wasn't going to get it all the first time. Watching it again and engaging with the discourse was really going to cement that for me. I think I got what it was going for pretty quickly and appreciated it on that basis. But then, well, here I go. I'm going to start saying some details from Ashley Clark's book that he talks in the updated foreword, the one from the 2022 reprinting of the book, about a bunch of events that occurred in the 25 years, or in the general years following the release of Bamboozled, that kind of confirmed, in his view, some of the prescience of that movie. And he was talking about prominent Black entertainers, like I think maybe most saliently Kanye West, and some really ignorant comments that he made about slavery that eerily closely resemble some things that Pierre Delacroix says in the film. There was that. He also made passing reference to the Jussie Smollett scandal that happened before the pandemic, as well as Will Smith's infamous Oscar slap. He's caught in a funny place in relation to it because I think he was offered the role of Pierre, but did not accept it because he was playing Bagger Vance, which was a role that Spike Lee took issue with.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so
famously, like not.
I've not seen that movie.
Neither have I.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
That movie.
Yeah.
Who wants to come to the Bagger Vance viewing party?
See, Idris, I love this about you though, because you don't shy away from that. You're like, give it.
You're
to
like,
me.
I'm gonna make my own opinion.
I want to know what this is about. You know, like
I'm sure it's not good. But
Yeah.
I'm very curious.
Yeah, no, but like you want to see it with your own eyes.
I've never talked to anyone who's seen it.
You know what? I haven't either. To be honest.
Same.
But, yeah.
But yeah, Julian, Will Smith is also referenced in this movie.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that his wife is in this movie.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I mean, there's a moment, in the commentary before there's that line drop near the end of the film where I think it's Pierre who says, "Getting jiggy with it." And, Spike Lee chuckles to himself in the commentary about that.
That's like his biggest guffaw, like in the commentary. I think like he really cracks himself up with that.
I like that about him too, that he's a deeply referential person and he has like his own Easter eggs he puts in things and he laughs at them. I can relate to that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved all that, Julian.
Thanks.
To me, I think, yes, it very much is situated in 2000. All the things you said are 100% true, Idris, about how it really is kind of a time capsule in many respects of the turn of the century. But watching it with a real critical eye and really trying to think about what it's commenting on, I mean, this movie is just talking about, unfortunately, a very evergreen thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right. And so I can't, unfortunately, imagine a time when this movie is not going to feel relevant. I just think that so much of what it gets at is part of like the original sin of our country, of society. And it's not just about black and white. I mean, it is about the act of making stereotypes, looking to stereotypes for humor, and looking for stereotypes as a place of commodification.
Mm-hmm.
It's the commerce part that I think it is that America's biggest import is Black culture. So if you think about commerce, exploitation, if you think about what Trump is doing right now with the Smithsonian, or trying to, it is this thing of like, I'm going to profit off of you, and you can't know that I did that, right? So it's like the crime is in the cover up, and so, and I think what he's after in this movie is about really the psychological damage that is done to someone you abuse in that way.
Yeah.
Right. When you piss on someone's head and tell them it's rain, but actually not even tell them it's rain. You tell them, no, nobody's pissing on you.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with your head? You know what I mean? And you're like, does everyone see him pissing on me? And everyone does, but they're just like, get over it. Or people pee on my head too. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which
many people who study Black humor and Black comedy actually say that is the root of Black comedy. Not Black comedy like a genre.
No.
Yeah. Like African comedy of the African diaspora, African American comedy. That is the root of it. Is that sort of
the push and pull.
Yeah. To your point, Emilio, I think that is so. Like, there's a really famous, much beloved early play by the playwright and screenwriter Luis Valdez, who famously wrote the screenplay for the movie La Bamba.
Yes,
but he started out as in a theater company called Teatro Campesino, which was like a big farm workers theater company. He's got a play called Los Vendidos, and it's like it's a play he considers like his most crude, but it's like his most beloved because it is about these stereotypes. I mean, translated, the title is The Sellouts. And it's about like this Latino who's presented as kind of like a Pierre Delacroix or a Sloane kind of character is looking to buy a Latino essentially. And then there's a character who's kind of like the car salesman who's showing you all these different types of, there's like the cholo guy, and then there's the zoot suit guy, and then there's the like quote unquote whitewashed, Marco Rubio type of dude, right? And he wrote this play like in the 70s, but there isn't a sort of huge industry built around the images of that culture, right? There's a lot of exploitation of that culture, or not exploitation, subjugation of that culture, and certainly exploitation of that culture. But the ways in which Black folks were at the center of America's form of entertainment, its expression, like the musical as a form is opera from Italy with vaudeville, and vaudeville comes from minstrel shows, from blackface. So like the American musical as we know it, when I teach this stuff in my classes, like we can't skip over this. So, Birth of a Nation has blackface characters in it. And it was a huge success. So like, I just think that is the sort of unique, very specific thing about Bamboozled. And that is the part that unfortunately is going to continue until America as a nation just at least accepts that it has been pissing on our head. Like just admits it fully as a starting point, so it's the cover up, it's the constant lying and avoidance.
Sure.
Yeah. Julian, I think it was the Ashley Clark interview where he and Spike were talking about Spike's NYU film, The Answer.
Yeah.
And in that same interview, Spike gets into how he made that as an answer to The Birth of a Nation, and how that is still, at least at the time, and possibly still, was very much taught in film school without really reckoning with the like very real damage it had in like reigniting the KKK.
Right.
And that he really makes The Answer in response to this. And The Answer is really like part of the DNA for this film, several years later.
I would also add that early response that Spike Lee had in college is something that he's really carried with him
absolutely
throughout his career as a filmmaker. We didn't really talk about it in our episode of Mo Better Blues, but I read a little bit of a biography of him after we did that episode. And he talked about how he made that movie in response to Clint Eastwood's Bird. It paints this artist as this tortured person, and he really hated how this artist couldn't be portrayed as like a vibrant human. And so he's like, well, you're going to meet Bleak Gilliam now.
Yeah.
And he's going to be Denzel Washington, and he's going to look incredible, and he's going to have this amazing place, and he's going to have his pick of all the women he wants. And I know he did it also again with Clint Eastwood later with The Miracle at Santa Ana and Letters to Iwo Jima, I believe. But I know that what inspires him is the fact that he looks at the world a little differently in a lot of ways because of his upbringing, in a lot of ways because of immutable things about who he is. And so The Answer, I mean, he's been doing that his whole career.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the reason he finds success so young, so soon after finishing NYU, is because he had a voice and I think knew what he wanted to say from the time he was making student films in college. And people recognized that really early on. And so he's somebody that was really able to tell these stories. He was able to get the resources to tell these stories. And I think part of it was the conviction he had and what he wanted to say. I don't know that you can say that about a lot of like young film students. Like they're still trying out a lot of different things. They maybe don't really know what they want to say with their art yet. And I think he's always been very clear about what he wants.
And to speak to this being a through line of Spike Lee's career, there was a very abundant reference to The Birth of a Nation in BlacKkKlansman. The very memorable montage towards the end of that movie does a great job of showcasing the long shadow that movie casts, the damage that it's done, and the inspiration that it continued and continues to give to the KKK.
Yeah.
He has a great understanding of the power of images. And some people who are Spike Lee detractors will call his style heavy-handed, but I think it's a strength of his work. I mean, there's things in Bamboozled that I think are great examples of that. Maybe most notably that montage towards the end.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But there's these little insertions that happen along the way too. I mean, like that montage were about commodities, about pet rocks, Pokemon, that kind of stuff. And well, also, I mean, it's audacious of him. I wouldn't call it pompous, but references to his own movies.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
himself.
Or himself. Specifically.
Yeah, but that clip from
Universe.
that clip
Yes,
from Malcolm
yes.
X.
Spike Lee universe.
There
Yeah.
it is. Yep.
That clip from Malcolm X, where the title of the movie comes from.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then there's also like, what's the Michael
Dunwich?
Yeah, Dunwich.
Yeah.
Such a silly name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dunwich is like, I don't care what that guy Spike Lee says.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. In a
Yeah.
lot of ways, Spike is similar to a hip hop artist in the sense that the word on the street, and there is a bit of a self-referentialism. There is sort of a remix quality, and this is certainly something you see in contemporary Black filmmakers, more specifically like someone like Ryan Coogler. There is this way, this conscientious calling back and referencing, what's come before. Ancestry is very big and with Black artists, for sure. And of course, what an appropriate movie, right? Like you can't talk about Black art and the history of Black art and leave him out of it.
Yeah.
So it's so meta in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
That in a way also is something that I think makes it so of its time, makes it so of 2000.
Yeah.
The information age, the digital age, the communication age, the new millennium, the way that we even interrogate or satirize minstrelsy and blackface. I think it's doing that, because one of the things I appreciate that he does in the movie is like he picks probably one of the world's greatest tap dancers to play Man Ray or Mantan, and then he picks the incredibly, Tommy Davidson is one of the most underrated, underutilized comic actors.
He's so
he
good in
picks
this movie. Yeah.
Super talented people. Like
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to deny that these guys are entertaining.
Well,
Yeah.
I love that point, and it's actually something I remember Tommy Davidson talked about in the interviews. He was like, when he went back and he tried to educate himself, much like his character does in the movie, he had to go back to a lot of examples of Black minstrelsy. And he was like, what struck me was these were incredible performers.
Yeah.
Who were never given the opportunity to do dignified work.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. That little exchange that they have when they're in the chicken coop, it's really good, and they do it so well. But to the point of this film, it's so hard to watch that scene and unequivocally enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
the same thing with Womack's monologue about like I'm my own grandfather, because he delivers it so well. But that is just a minstrel script. Like that is actually a minstrel script.
Yep.
That's what it's taken from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what adds to both of those scenes you mentioned, and even more in the film, is that you get these montages before all those performances of the actors applying blackface in the dressing rooms, and that there were real tears on their faces. Like the actual actors on set were crying when they were doing that, because it was that harrowing to them. But then when you see Tommy Davidson and Savion Glover performing, I mean, it's like if you just saw that image, you wouldn't know on the surface level that there's that same pain preceding it.
They're able to mask it.
They are able to mask it.
Another thing that Tommy Davidson talked about in the interview on the Criterion disc is how they were originally going to actually use this formula they use in the film, where they actually melt the cork, but it's very painful. And that they weren't able to actually use it. They ended up using a different kind of makeup, actual makeup, to apply the blackface.
But to go through that step and to realize just how physically painful it was.
Exactly. It adds this whole other layer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to speak on this, and I might find a way to get to your question through this a little bit. As we talked about before, that the film is shot on mini DV. And so it has this real kind of grainy, almost home video look to it. But the show is shot on 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
And so it has this really interesting flipped effect where you see the darkness of the blackface and like the fire engine redness of the lipstick. It's in as much saturation as this movie can give you. I find it really interesting that in making the TV show feel more like a movie, more cinematic, so to speak, and that the movie feel more like a TV show, it makes the casual racism that we see characters exhibiting feel way more voyeuristic, like way more hidden camera, like we're seeing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It feels like a documentary.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And it amplifies the discomfort of the show by making it like really bright and really clear. It feels like this decision that I know was done in some respects to shoot it on mini DV out of budgetary concerns, but I think it gives function to the form.
Yeah. Well, you've already provided a great answer to the question I wrote, but I'll still pose it just so everyone can make what they will of it.
Yeah.
No. Don't be sorry. That was great. We've already acknowledged that the narrative content of Bamboozled makes for incredibly dense discussion, but yes, the aesthetic details of the film are also marks of its distinction. Naturally, it is grainy due to being filmed on mini DV with that little bit of 16 millimeter along the way. But I also thought just kind of like the flow of the movie, the tone of it, the pacing were kind of esoteric as well. And it's just the visceral experience of watching this movie does not feel like watching a lot of other movies. I'll state a few examples of that in my view, but what generally do we make of Spike Lee's aesthetic choices in this film, visually and narratively?
Yeah, I mean, Emilio, you were talking about how there is kind of a benefit to filming in this way. He talks about this occasionally on the commentary where he'll point out specific shots that they wouldn't be able to do with a larger camera. Like the last scene before the montage, like where the scene where Sloane comes in, spoiler alert, and like shoots him. He's talking on the commentary, like that shot, the above shot, the camera's taped to the ceiling. And it's stuff like that, or other parts where like when Pierre and Dunwity will be like across the same desk and there's like back-to-back cameras.
Oh yeah.
Because like one's facing one person and one's facing the other.
Yeah.
I think that this really lends itself to the style of the film, and it's a benefit of using this particular kind of camera that you wouldn't be able to get with a more traditional movie camera.
Yeah.
Right.
And that there were multiple
Exactly.
cameras.
There's multiple cameras in every shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the mobility of these camcorders. This is also a good moment, because we're talking about cinematography, to shout out Ellen Kuras, who is the official cinematographer of Bamboozled. There's that, and also, when it comes to like aesthetic details that I think distinguish this film, I think that, well, we haven't said anything about this yet, though I know just because of who we all are that this affected everyone. Terrence Blanchard's score.
Oh my God.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's beautiful to listen to. In fact, the main theme of the film has been running through my head for days now.
Yeah.
And it's a great theme.
Yeah.
But then like the way that the score kind of sits in the experience of the film is pretty unique, because it's not like a lot of other major film scores where not that long ago we talked about Jaws and, like what John Williams might do, where there's a synchronicity between the score and the action you see on screen, or it's meant to create suspense. It's more that it's kind of there in the background semi-constantly. It's part of the set as opposed to part of the action.
Yeah. In recent viewings of the movie, I've kind of interpreted that theme, the da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, as almost being Terrence Blanchard's version of like a sitcom song. There's some comfort to it from the music theory perspective. The melody resolves to the tonic a lot. So like the note that feels like home, it's almost always there, but the chords underneath it are always pulling away from the resolution that note usually brings. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
It's haunting. But again, it sounds like something just on its own that would accompany, like Three's Company or, any number of other shows.
Once you said it sounded like sitcom music, it made me think of, I think, this stock theme that I've heard used on the Eric Andre show as kind of like the button after each segment. And there was even an episode, I think it's stock music, because there was an episode in the first season of Atlanta that used that same music, where it just, I think the button part of it sounds like, And anyone who's seen either show, especially Eric Andre, because I think it's used every episode, will know when they hear it.
Yeah.
Now that you mention that, I mean, yes, like Terrence Blanchard has a very elegant way of playing, but I can see that.
Yeah, and this main theme in Bamboozled, the point where I notice it the most, it's always played underneath when they are applying blackface.
Yes.
And so this, very, as you say, like almost sitcom feeling theme, like juxtaposed with like these people having to do the most degrading act is, I think, a really interesting choice by Spike.
Yeah.
And by Terrence Blanchard.
And juxtaposition is a great word for it too.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one other Spike Lee film that it made me think of, and he has a massive filmography. I've seen a bunch. There's also a lot I have yet to see, but I think maybe one of his less seen films, which is Red Hook Summer. I saw it some years ago. It didn't have much of an impact on me then, though, like seeing Bamboozled, while it's thematically about, it has some very different concerns, it does make me open to reassessing that movie too. But there's a similar kind of aura to it where like the action of the movie is not popping out at you. The score kind of feels like it's there in the background more or less. And there's like the movie walks an interesting line between like a documentary realism and just, straight ahead narrative fiction. I mean, I posed it as a question because I'm still not totally sure what the answer is, but I feel like, just on those pure aesthetic levels that Spike Lee really creates a lane of his own with films like Bamboozled and then later Red Hook Summer. This is not a movie that's meant to be comfortable to watch. And I think that kind of subtle subversion of the visceral experience that we're used to from movies adds to that.
Yeah, it's not to let you become complacent.
Yeah.
It's to intentionally wake you up, to pull you out, to shift
What
you,
is
to make
that?
you go, what was that? And, which is very like Brechtian, to not allow an audience to be complacent.
Yeah.
And to remind them, you are with me on this. We're going on a trip together. Like, so he uses these kind of tactics of disruption. Yeah.
Yeah. Disruption's a great word for it.
What's cool, I didn't think of this until you guys were talking about Terrence Blanchard. Spike Lee has this kind of elegance, and then he'll just bust that open.
Yeah.
It's jazz and hip hop. Like, even putting music, but like prominently under dialogue scenes, you notice it, and you have to listen harder because the music's doing its thing too. So anyway, that's just something that occurred to me just now. Is that like Terrence Blanchard creates very lovely, sophisticated, very elegant music, but it's in the jazz idiom and it's contemporary jazz. So it's not. This is not score really. These are songs. It's like, And then he will just create some fake commercials that are just like that are wild. And they're like little sketches from like In Living Color or something like that. Like he's consciously on the paint set, on the toolkit. He's using a lot of the tools of like shock news journalism of that era, cable news journalism. He's reality TV, surveillance stuff like Cops and whatever, sketch comedy.
This movie, I think, like it's very upfront that it engages with tropes from the American past, but it's also praised for being a very foretelling movie too, a prescient movie. That it's also like an early use of like this kind of camcorder technology in mainstream film. There are some notable things from the years that followed Bamboozled that come to mind. Like two prominent directors who used it are Michael Mann and David Lynch. Michael Mann in Collateral, and I think I haven't seen it yet, but Miami Vice, I've heard, has that too.
Yeah, it's got that.
Public Enemies.
Public Enemies.
Oh, yeah, which I have seen, but it's been years. Need to revisit it.
And then, I mean, Danny Boyle in 28 Years Later.
This is true. Yeah, great call there. And then David Lynch in Inland Empire, which is also a very like uncanny, bizarre film to watch. Like,
is that the one that's like 4 hours of like Laura Dern looking out of windows?
Yeah.
More or less.
That one broke me. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I feel like I was Team Lynch for sure. I still am.
Yeah.
God bless the dead. Love me some Lost Highway.
Yeah.
Love me some Mulholland Drive. Saw those in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Inland Empire, I was like, okay, You win.
I
You win in
saw
this staring contest.
I saw Inland Empire in a theater, and there are moments of that like I do not want to see on the big screen again. They are terrifying.
They're very intense.
Idris, you mentioned the commercials
Yeah.
in this film, which are also shot on film.
Mm-hmm.
On the commentary, Spike talks about how, the real Tommy Hilfiger
Yeah.
comes up to him on the street
I love
like
this story.
years later
Yeah.
and is basically like, why did you portray me like that? I've done so much for the Black community. I volunteer here and I give this kind of money. And it's like, man, that's what he's talking about.
Exactly. He took umbrage to the fact that he was catching strays.
It's not subtle, yeah.
No, it's definitely not subtle. But I think it also comes back to, Spike Lee's point of view. Like he sees when people like are too precious about these commodified things, when their resources could be going to other things. It speaks to him. The people up top, the Tommy Hilfigers, are too busy counting their money to realize the effect that this has on communities.
Yeah, it's like, contribute to my multi-billion-dollar company or whatever they say in the commercial.
Yeah. I love that moment too. It's kind of funny.
Well, that makes me think.
Portrayed by the great Danny Hawk, hip hop theater artist Danny Hawk.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Tommy, what was his last name? again?
I'm good, man.
I'm gonna leave that one for people to see in the film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
But it's. Yeah, I mean,
not
like
to
that,
be confused.
Yeah.
But in the Tommy Hill inward moment.
I mean, that
So
makes me think
funny.
of like the kind of satire you'd see in like later things, like the way that a lot of white characters are portrayed in Atlanta,
Sure.
or also in a movie that came out. This also came up when we last had you on, Idris. Sorry to Bother You.
I thought about Sorry to Bother You.
I'm wondering if we can take that as an opportunity to get into comparison.
Totally.
Oh, we're there.
We're
But
there.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Sorry to Bother You. I think
compare.
another one of the great satires of the 21st century.
Yeah.
But also a movie that is like very, in a way that serves its own narrative very well, very tongue in cheek. And I think, in lieu of like a Tommy Hilfiger type of character in Bamboozled, you get a character in Sorry to Bother You played by, of all people, Armie Hammer.
Yeah. The best role he's ever been cast in.
Who is, I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, all due respect to that portrayal of the Winklevi
Oh,
in
yes.
The Social Network.
That's
Yes,
true.
absolutely.
That's true.
But like he's there as more or less a stand-in for Jeff Bezos or a figure like him.
Right.
For people who are less familiar with it, Lakeith Stanfield plays the main character of that movie. He's just a guy who desperately needs a job and begins working at this telemarketing company. And then, he's struggling to actually find any success on the job. And then another older telemarketer played by Danny Glover, who's sitting a few stations down from him,
Who is referenced in Bamboozled. Sorry, continue.
who is referenced in Bamboozled, tells him that if he wants to be successful, he has to use his white voice. And then the whole narrative takes off from there. That's just the beginning of that story.
Yeah, that's like the first 15 minutes.
Yeah. I think it's a great setup, and it still remains very compelling even without saying anything else about that movie, which notably came out the same summer as two other films I want to shout out, one of which is another Spike Lee film, BlacKkKlansman, which also has that same element of using the white voice to
Over the phone, yes.
over the phone to someone who can't recognize the foolery in that. But the other movie that came out the same summer, which I think is not talked about as much, is Blind Spotting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a really good movie. One thing about Bamboozled that brought Blind Spotting to mind was actually the Michael Rappaport character, Dunwitty, who, like, the way that character is portrayed in Bamboozled as a white person who co-opts black slang and assumes a familiarity with black culture that is, I think, for a lot of viewers uncomfortable to witness, and yet sadly representative of a very real type of person.
Yeah.
The very problematic friend of the Daveed Diggs character in that movie is a very similar sort of person.
Yeah.
And that movie has a very interesting commentary on the way that character gets away with embodying a type of persona that is often unfairly the model of stereotypes of black people. That movie, I think that it deserves a boost.
Totally.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Madeline?
Well, you mentioned Atlanta. I
Mhm.
was thinking about the Teddy Perkins episode.
Yeah.
In which Donald Glover dons whiteface.
Mhm.
And it's, I think, meant to be this reclaiming in some ways. But also, I just think in general, Atlanta is one of those television shows that is one of the few representations of like modern satire. I think that we allowed to be really successful because as we talked about last time you were here, Idris, I think a lot of Americans don't really like satire and like can't really comprehend it and like what it's putting down. I think Atlanta is a show that does this very successfully and is very well received by the public and by critics. And I think the Teddy Perkins episode is really affecting because of what Donald Glover chooses to do.
Also an episode that foregrounds Lakeith Stanfield.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Sorry to bother you. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like he individually was at the center of a lot of these kinds of satires for a few years.
Yeah.
Idris, how about you? Any movie you want to compare or bring into conversation with Bamboozled with?
Well, I'm thinking actually about things that are not necessarily satires. One that comes to mind is based on Sam Greenlee's book, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, which is about a black man who like trains with the CIA and then takes everything he learns like back to the black community in Chicago, and they try to like kind of do this counter-military warfare thing. And so that's more in that genre, but it's dealing with this deception of sort of gaining inside knowledge and cozying up to the forces of oppression and then trying to like slit their throat. Valkyrie maybe is another one that comes to mind for this. So that was that one. And then I'm thinking about films like American Fiction, Sorry to Bother You, even Dear White People, Atlanta. These are post-Bamboozled movies. I kind of feel like the more I think about this, all these films kind of owe something to Bamboozled. Yeah. There's a slickness to them, and they're very much following the satirical rules of make it seem like real life and let abnormal things happen in real life. Like that's where that's the commentary. But what sets Bamboozled apart is that he's just unafraid to be like wild. Like this, and that's the part where you said he was influenced by producers, because I didn't listen to the commentary. But so it was cool to hear that he is influenced, because I'm like, oh, that's what it is about this movie. There's a lot of Mel Brooks in this movie too. There is, that kind of really out there zany, like and that I think is what makes Bamboozled really unique from all other satires, is that it's also kind of doing vaudeville and doing minstrelsy a little bit.
Yeah, like within the story that isn't depicting that, but it's borrowing from the tradition. Yeah. My choice for a comparison to Bamboozled is a movie that I saw again for the first time last year since seeing it as a teenager, which is Robert Townsend's Hollywood Shuffle. He certainly did not have a Spike Lee-like career, but his film, Hollywood Shuffle, is a total triumph.
First of all, Emilio, I don't know what you're up to in this episode, okay? But you were just making me want to adopt you right now. Like, look at my man here. Look at that movie.
It's so good.
It's incredible for so many reasons.
And hopefully I can do it justice when I talk about it here a bit. But it's a somewhat autobiographical movie about a young black actor who auditions for a role that is a deeply stereotypical gang member. And the movie is this kind of fantastical vignette-laden awakening that he has to the reality that the film industry only really wants to see him playing crooks and pimps. I remember as a teenager when I first saw this, there are some really funny little bits to this movie. Like there's the sneaking into the movies segment that's like a play on Siskel and Ebert that's very funny. Yeah. And there's the whole like Jerry Curl crew thing that happens. It's also, I think, very funny. Like I said, I saw it again last summer and I was really blown away by it. I was like, wow, like this movie is really on something. Like Bamboozled, there are, I think, some scenes that are like as heartbreaking as they are
Yes.
funny. It just gets so into his head. And I think one of the joys of Hollywood Shuffle is the way it foregrounds the main character's internal struggle. I think it does it in a way that I would argue is a lot more effective in some respects than Bamboozled. I think Bamboozled is going for something very different. Paul Mooney and Damon Wayans are also in Hollywood Shuffle, which is kind of fun to see.
Ooh.
So there's an overlap of the actors there. I think Bamboozled and Hollywood Shuffle also have a very similar climactic moment for their main characters. And I got to say, Hollywood Shuffle has one of my favorite endings I've ever seen in a movie. The very end, if you know, you know, Hollywood Shuffle has an absolute banger of an ending.
Right.
So,
that is a double feature that I'm driving to. And it's actually funny. It's like those are the two movies that I actually someday want to make like stage musicals out of is Hollywood Shuffle and Bamboozled. I think Bamboozled would make an incredible musical.
That'd be wild. But really cool.
Incredible.
Oh, definitely.
So I'm speaking that into existence. But no, that is a great hot take. And talk about artists in conversation, right? Like Hollywood Shuffle is the ultimate maxed out my credit cards to make a movie.
Totally.
And I don't know I think Spike Lee is first. I think She's Gotta Have It.
Like right before.
First.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get the West. I mean, Townsend's like West Coast Spike Lee in a way.
Yeah.
And out of that, you get that whole school that becomes In Living Color.
Yeah.
So
like I'm going to get you, sucker, and all that. Yeah.
So much in the same way that Dr. Dre and Q-Tip from the Tribe Called Quest talk about how their albums were in conversation. Like, you know, you get Straight Outta Compton, and then you get People's Instinctive Travels, and then you get The Chronic, and then you get, you get Midnight Marauders.
Midnight Marauders,
kind of like these coastal conversations. And so it's like in a weird way, like Bamboozled is the follow-up to what Townsend begins with Keenan Ivory Wayans, that becomes I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, which becomes In Living Color, Tommy Davidson, and then now you get Bamboozled, which is, so it's a whole oeuvre of, it's a whole conversation of Black comedy once it gets on TV, and it isn't Sanford and Son and stuff that come from Norman Lear. These are now like hip hop generation, the Eddie Murphy generation, making it more so on their own terms, not fully on their own terms, but certainly more so on their own terms.
Right.
And
yeah.
Interesting bookend, those two. If you think of Bamboozled and Hollywood Shuffle as bookends, it's
for sure
really dope.
Well, I'm glad that you've co-signed this, Idris. But yes, if you've seen Bamboozled and you're interested in what it's going for, run, don't walk to see Hollywood Shuffle.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
What a recommendation.
It's good stuff.
Well, that has been Comparison Corner.
Yes.
So the Junebug sequence in the middle of this movie, Junebug is the stand-up comedian played by Paul Mooney. Really, the first time I saw it, I felt like the movie was actively taking a detour to go there. And every time since, it's kind of becoming one of my favorite parts of this movie. Because I think there's just layers that emerge from that sequence with every subsequent viewing. And I was curious for you guys, what did you get from that scene as it pertains to the story? And then I think more broadly, as it relates to what's uniting the movies that we're talking about, the theme of our cycle, audience interrogation. I'm wondering if there's anything more broadly that it may be saying about humor and audiences and authenticity. And I'll pose it to you first, Idris.
So first off, there's a bit of stunt casting going on, which is that we know the legend of Paul Mooney and his contributions to Black comedy. These two poles of Black comedy, certainly in 20th century, the later part of the 20th century, are Cosby and Pryor. And Cosby represents, he's the Martin Luther King Jr., and Richard Pryor is the Malcolm X, right? Like, Pryor is Magneto. Cosby at the time was a Professor Xavier, right? Irony, isn't it?
I know, right?
Funny what time reveals, but at the time. So what really essentially kills the minstrelsy is Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor kills that idea of, I have to put this on for white folks. And some would argue that that's sort of respectability, the respectable comic, Black comic in a suit, working clean. Richard Pryor destroys that. When he goes away to Berkeley, has a reawakening, comes back, and he's like, no, look at me. Like, you made me. Like, I'm a product of this country, and I'm going to talk about the whorehouse that I grew up in Peoria, and I'm going to talk about the drunks and winos and all that, and find the humanity and the comedy in that. So when we see Junebug up there's some stunt casting in the sense of, if you know, you know. For Black folks, we're like, we know him, we know those jokes. But also, it's another very important point of view on comedy. We're so much from Peerless Pierre's point of view. First of all, Peerless is such a fire name.
It is.
I'm like,
Why are you
what?
calling yourself Pierre? Anyway.
Yeah. We'll get to that, I think, right?
Yeah, but
we'll
so
come back to
to
that.
see another strong point of view from a comedian, a very skilled comedian who's giving some counter perspective, you realize in that moment, for Pierre, it's not about comedy. It's not about laughs. That's not enough for him. He wants something else, which is ultimately, we learn later, is this acceptance, which we all know it's not real. And that's why the film sort of ends like how it ends. It's there's no there. And so for me, that Junebug thing is very important. One is just because Spike in general has always been a very cross-disciplinary, multi-disciplinary filmmaker in terms of Black expression. He's always going to find ways. He's going to bring in the musicians. He's going to bring in, and She's Gotta Have It. There's like a whole section where there's just a dance performance with
In color,
yeah.
And there's a dancer there because he loves musicals. So he wants to see all the different kinds of Black expression. Highest to lowest, there's a bunch of just shots of artwork, of visual artwork in the Denzel character's apartment. So I'm reminded of, he's like, now we're going to make space for you guys to just watch a master old school Black stand-up comic who's representing, that form of comedy, because we're in this sketch comedy world for most of the movie. And then finally, we learn things about Peerless Pierre that we can only learn because he's talking to someone who's an authority. So it's actually very efficient and really skillful, that sequence. It deepens the character and it contradicts the character. He doesn't control the narrative as much anymore. And because we hate Dunwitty, and we know Dunwitty doesn't know what he's talking about. But here's someone who actually shows you could just do it your way and do it on your own terms and be happy a happy person. And he's like, that's not enough for me. And that's when you're like, uh-oh. And then he says, foreshadowing, that's the last time I ever saw him again.
Right.
And
Right.
like,
I know.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Paul Mooney.
There we go. Yeah. How about you, Madeline?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the scene where it's truly confirmed for the audience that Pierre Dela, he's a fraud. He has created a character for himself. Like before that, we see and hear from his mother, and you're kind of like, okay, so how do we get Pierre, from this woman who seems just American and not French or whatever, you're
Creole or whatever.
Exactly. You're kind of like, okay, so who's his father? Like that's probably kind of where he gets this from. And then you meet the father and you're like, no, okay, so Pierre is just a complete fabrication. Like we truly understand that the name and the voice and the personality is just an act. And his father says to him, where did you get that accent?
Yeah.
And I think that, like you said, Idris, it being somebody that is an authority figure, but also like it's his own father. It's someone he has history with. It's someone that he can't like front for.
Yeah.
It's someone that sees through him and what he's trying to like posture in a way that other people, I think, kind of pick up on, but don't like the people like Sloane don't really feel like they have the place to question it until later in the film.
Yeah. I want to jump off of that.
Yeah.
Because watching it this time, he does that radio interview right in the middle of the movie where he's trying to defend the show.
Yeah.
And the DJ says something that I just caught this time, which is he goes, your great grandmother, the woman who raised your mother's mother, was born into slavery. And that to me tells me that he knows that this guy's a phony.
Yeah.
He wouldn't say that if he believed
This guy was like a
Fearless
French
is
immigrant.
Exactly.
Yeah. But going back to the Paul Mooney scene, and first viewing, as I watched the movie twice in prep for this conversation, first viewing, before you even realize that Junebug is Pierre or Peerless's father, Paul Mooney shows up and I was already like, let's go.
Yeah, I know.
Just as an appreciator of the history of American comedy, recognizing him and thinking, it wouldn't be out of place for Spike Lee to just insert a Paul Mooney routine and have it be that, like, as it's really meant to be. Like,
Right,
this is not
that's right.
a character. This is the real Paul Mooney. It wouldn't be out of place for Spike Lee to do that. But then when you watch this movie, there's a lot of moments where it is really trying to poke at you and see if you are going to laugh at it. And as an audience member, it's a very conflicting feeling. Because like what the movie is aiming for, and yet you don't feel like you should laugh at it. And I think even Paul Mooney's style of comedy, depending on who you are as an audience member, is also very much meant to do the same thing.
Totally.
It's like, on the one hand, very easy to understand like the impact of the humor. But, I do feel admittedly some honest hesitation about just outright laughter at most of it. I feel like it's not necessarily my place to do that.
I think that's the other thing that this scene brings up is that he's doing this in a predominantly black club.
Right.
And that's the distinction between the humor that Junebug is trafficking in versus Mantan, the New Millennium Minstrel Show.
Yeah, there's a deleted scene on the Criterion disc of Mantan doing a performance at the Apollo in a chicken suit.
Oh, Lord.
And it goes over really badly. And I think it in the position of where it was supposed to be towards the end of the film. And what Spike also references it briefly on the commentary, but you can watch the scene itself on the disc as well. And he was kind of like, you can't do that there. Like people in Harlem are not going to put up with this nonsense. Like
they would have fried it up. They would have fried him up in this.
Yeah. And he has to like escape basically. And then I think it's sort of meant to be like, okay, that kind of wakes him up.
Interesting. He's like, here's the line.
Exactly.
I found the line.
And I think that's very interesting when you look at it also with this Paul Mooney scene, which is also in a predominantly or entirely black club, and kind of how these primarily or entirely black audiences can engage with different kinds of comedy, and they're not going to put up with, something that's going to degrade them.
It is a for us by us kind of brand of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
The Junebug stuff. The other thing I like about it, just structurally in the film, it's kind of Pierre/Peerless's no going back moment.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's the moment where he kind of goes there to be like, is there any last semblance of what this guy has kind of introduced for me? Is there any of this that I'm going to take away and digest to help me navigate what's coming? And he kind of dismisses him and dismisses it.
But he still wants his respect and validation, because later you get a conversation with Peerless and his mother where he's asking his mom, like, has dad called? Well, when he calls, ask him if he's seen the show.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah. And quickly, while we're still on that scene, I mean, at the very end of the routine that you see performed, that Paul Mooney says something about Mother Teresa carving a smile onto someone's face. I think there's more than one moment in Bamboozled that also anticipates by a margin of 8 years The Dark Knight. Yeah, because that makes you think of
what
the Joker,
pull.
of course. But also, moving later into the plot, when the Mau Mau's capture, they capture Man Ray or Mantan, that like the way that they are broadcasting their torture and eventual murder of him is a very Joker-like thing to do as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
But like specifically the joke, like Heath Ledger's Joker of that movie.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also with the Paul Mooney scene, I was thinking about, the last Spike Lee we talked about, Mo Better Blues, also has this kind of this moment in the film that kind of pauses the action of the film to have like a several minute set from a comedian.
Oh,
Robin
Harris.
Oh, right.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's so good. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Since we watched Mo Better Blues, I rewatched Do the Right Thing, which Robin Harris is also in. There's a line he has in that movie that I think is one of the greatest insults ever set to film.
Is that the if you insult me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize?
Well, that's pretty good too. But
I'm trying to remember.
And he says it to Buggin' Out.
Okay.
Because like bugging out is trying
Oh,
to.
you need to go you need to boycott the barber.
Yes, that's it. That's the one. Yeah.
That is my number one Spike Lee. That's my number one movie. That's my number one Spike Lee movie.
It's interesting because there's so much going on in Bamboozled, and sometimes I think it borders on like spilling over a bit. I think one of the beats it kind of misses is Sloane and the like her kind of sleeping with Delacroix. Like I feel like the movie kind of fumbles that a little bit, and I think Do the Right Thing finds a way to balance every little thread that it puts out there and just kind of ties it up really nicely. So, but
it's I think just talking about like some of the weaknesses of it. I mean, if you can pick only 5 Spike Lee movies to sum up his whole career, like this one has to be in there.
I agree. Yeah.
I do think the casting of and the performance of Damon Wayans, I think, is a mistake. Not a mistake. Let me put this differently. It is what it is, but I find that like the decision to go with that characterization, I feel like Pierre, he's so odd and he's pulling too much focus for me. Like you start thinking about the voice and you start thinking about that's Damon Wayans and you start, and maybe you're supposed to, I don't know, but I actually don't think so. I don't think it's that calculated. I think the stunt casting of just having Damon Wayans would have been enough, just like Tommy Davidson. Tommy Davidson's not putting on all this other stuff until he's actually on stage. But for me, like him being the black writer already is enough. But then him being the black writer with this strange affectation, which everyone else knows is fake. But the fact that we know it's fake makes us, it positions him in a certain way where we're not rooting for him as much. And I think that like this is why Hollywood Shuffle really, really works very well.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the main character that Townsend plays is so
likable.
You get what he wants, you get what he's after. And sure, he shows up in some of the sketches, the little sketchy moments, but like there's an earnestness to him. He's not like, you know, we know he wants fame. You know, he's not infallible, that he's attracted to these things. But Pierre feels like such a character. It feels like such a caricature and a commentary from Damon Wayans, from the actor, but I'm not clear on what it is. And I don't think Spike is either. I think Spike was like kind of daunted by Damon Wayans and just kind of let him do whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. I hear you.
Interesting, but it's the thing that just every time I watch the movie, I just want to see some other takes of him just playing it with nothing. You're just a person.
Yeah.
Who's making certain choices.
My read on why that accent is there, and I agree with you, it's a little distracting. I feel like it's supposed to be a manifestation of some of his self-hatred. I know that's something that Spike Lee has talked a lot about how a lot of the stereotypical images of Black characters in film and on television and through minstrelsy has brought a lot of self-hatred, to people. And it's made it difficult for them to feel comfortable in their own skin and to have that honest reflection like you see in a Hollywood Shuffle.
Yeah, I mean, Spike says on the commentary, he only addresses this accent at the beginning long enough to say, like, you know, this is something Damon Wayans and I talked about a lot. And ultimately, it is a manifestation of him rejecting his Blackness and of him trying to, you know, put on a front of and become a different person. In another one of the deleted scenes, Pierre meets that Swedish writer.
Oh yeah,
the director Finnish.
Yeah, the one who's there to like punch
guy.
up the script or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and Pierre uses the word Negro in reference to himself, and the guy's like, I don't know. What did you say? I don't know what that is. And Pierre says, I'm the last of the Negroes. And I found that really interesting in the deleted scene because I feel like he's trying to say that he's rejecting like modern Blackness and that there's almost a sophistication to like a time gone by that he associates with more. I'm just speculating.
No,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
I mean, well, that accent that Peerless has as Pierre immediately made me think of a television character that comes a few years after Bamboozled, this is a character on The Wire named Brother Mouzone, who's played by the great character actor Michael Potts. And this is a guy, I don't know if it's ever stated explicitly, but it's at least implied that he's a Nation of Islam member. And he has he's wearing a suit all the time and has like the bow tie and all that kind of stuff. And this character, I don't think it's spoiling anything to say he's a hitman. This very proper accent that he adopts is seen in stark contrast to a lot of the other people around him. And that, it feels sort of like, it's sort of like take the racial element out of it. Anyone who like sort of adopts such a proper accent in any case is trying to make a point with it. Like that was immediately what I detected from the character of Pierre in Bamboozled. So it's seeing like characters like that, or also a little later on in time, another famous television character like Gus Fring in Breaking Bad, who I think has a very similar clean cut persona. That was the vibe that I got.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Idris, that I do find it distracting.
It's conceptually it makes sense. It's just execution. I just think it's just not executed. He makes it comical. He's leaning into it so much with the hand gestures and all that stuff. And it is what it is. It is what it is. I don't want I don't want to see anything black for at least a week.
Yeah, like after the Mau Mau's audition.
The Mau Mau's performance.
That comes from a great sequence that we haven't really talked about yet, the audition sequence.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned the Roots yet.
Yeah.
The Roots are there. Yep.
Yeah.
I love that Mau Mau sequence though, because honestly, I know they're kind of played a little bit for laughs, but like everybody in that crew is like a legit MC.
Yeah.
And so they sound awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Spike said he only auditioned, legitimate rappers because he wanted them to be able to actually do a song for the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think
which is awesome. I actually love that song. I used to put that on mixtapes.
Yeah, they record it live, I think, in that scene.
Yeah. Well, and it speaks to what you said earlier. It like cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary, like I also think the Honeycutt moment where he's just like, to be or not to be, that's the motherfucking question.
That's like the funniest moment. It's
so
of the whole
funny
movie.
to me how it just kind
His delivery
spills
is
out.
excellent.
He's bullshitting, but like
he just feels like he's playing himself.
It really does, yeah.
Really
that's the great Thomas Jefferson Bird who plays him, who was from Clockers onward a regular character actor in Spike Lee films.
Right, yes, in Clockers.
Yeah, I think we lost him a couple years ago too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Not because of COVID though. But and he's kind of positioned, going back to the whole face in the crowd reference in this movie, that he's put in that kind of position over time where he is like when Mantan is out of the picture, that he is more or less the successor.
They're ready to put him in.
Yeah. They're waiting in the wings. Yeah.
Obviously every character in this movie is very multidimensional, but he appears to be enjoying his role from what you see on screen, and he gets to say the Lonesome Roads catchphrase.
The woo.
Yeah,
exactly. You're right.
Yeah.
Ooh-ah.
Yeah. In that audition sequence too, I mean, there's also like one very crass song sung by this singer who we only see in that one scene. Like, this movie is clearly stating you're not supposed to like this guy right away. And he's only there for the one scene. So then to laugh at his expense, I think, is maybe one of the easier moments of humor in this very morally complex movie.
Yeah.
I just want to take a little bit of time towards the end here to talk about the Myrna Goldfarb scene. I find that scene really interesting, and her 6-step defense strategy on how to deal with the backlash of the show.
I know,
which I did write out. So as a reminder, 1, we gainfully employ African Americans in front of and behind the camera. So you need a black grip, black PA, etc. Number 2, let the audience decide. Number 3, who put these critics in charge anyway? Which is my favorite. Number 4, who determines what is black? Number 5, the show is a satire. And number 6, if they can't take a joke, you know what? F them. And this stuck out to me because I'm like, well, this is the same defense strategy a lot of these companies have now.
Yeah.
One of these or a combination of them. So I was just wondering if you guys agree with that and how you felt about that scene.
That was an interesting scene to watch because it kind of made me think of like when it comes to improving representation in the media, like what concepts seem holistic but really are just kind of surface level beneficial. Because that first point, which is gainfully employing more Black crew members, I forget the exact list of all the things, all the roles she says, but basically more representation all around in all the roles in film and television. It's one thing to have representation. It's another thing for it to actually be like truly positive, like improving the image of a demographic.
Yeah.
And it's also, it's great to have more people behind the scenes too, but it's, the balance of behind and in front of the scenes.
Well, and there's also, it's great to have people of many different demographics, particularly the ones that you're portraying on screen behind the camera. But if you're just doing it as a defense strategy, then it's going to be short-lived. It's not going to inspire any long-term meaningful change.
That phrase defense strategy is the key word there.
Exactly.
The thing that jumped out to me about how that scene develops is how it starts off almost lighthearted.
Yeah.
But then when she sees that Sloane and Pierre are not really receptive, it kind of devolves. And at the very end, she goes like super surface level. She's like, kente cloth, invoking Martin Luther King Jr., the spirit of Martin Luther King, use the word community all the time. It's like, and that to me is the real humor of that scene.
Those moments made me think of Get Out.
Yeah. And it's that thing where it's all a performative thing. It's all performance. And so the moment she feels like her authority is being questioned, it goes to the lowest common denominator stuff. And you really see just how ineffectual what she's putting out there is going to be. Yeah.
I love the acting in that moment too. I love how the moment where she's like, okay, these people are getting me hard. Like, let's, like the face, but you're right. It is about the levels of this started out as a scheme and then it didn't go the way they wanted. And there's so many levels of, what are we even doing? Why are we even doing this? Like, won't someone say something? It's great.
Well, also that scene made me think of to bring it back to real world things. It made me think of something that occurred pretty widely in the summer of 2020, which was that there were a lot of television series and mostly not recent things, things of the past that somewhere included blackface that were taken off of streaming services. Sometimes I don't think there were any entire shows, but individual episodes of shows that featured that were removed from streaming services. And I remember reading criticism at the time that yes, so these images are negative portrayals. Obviously that, this is not something that anyone wants to glorify. Yes, decry the use of blackface in all these different works that show it, but that this is just kind of the surface level solution. This is not really reflecting a deeper industrial change. Yeah. It is all these companies improving the optics.
Yeah, it's performative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember that criticism at the time. No doubt it holds up today.
Cool. Are there any notable moments from this movie that we want to shout out real quick? I've covered most of mine, but there's one or two that I'd love to just mention real fast. But
get in there.
Another wrinkle of the Paul Mooney scene that I think is kind of interesting is he ends too drunk to walk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something kind of sad about it. But this morning I was doing some very last minute research and I found a podcast called Spike Lee's Joints. I believe the professor, his name is John E. Drabinsky. And he talks about this scene almost like the Paul Mooney character is something of a stand-in for Spike Lee, and how the act of creating meaningful art for a particular audience has a ceiling and also leaves you kind of unfulfilled in some ways, how it confines you to a life on the Chitlin circuit, or that you can never get too comfortable, or that it's just plain exhausting that you don't have relationships the way other people are allowed to. I wanted to shout that out, that I thought that was a really interesting moment. And I think it also plays out a little bit if you see what directly happens in Spike Lee's career after, which is this is kind of the last movie that he has it's really like a written and directed by for a little while. Like he goes and he does 25th Hour, which is a great film. He does I think She Hate Me, which is maybe the next one, but it's like 4 years later. But Bamboozled is really like coming on the heels of a run that he has like 15 years of basically a movie every year that is engaging really deeply with these themes of the Black community. I just thought that was a really interesting way to approach the Paul Mooney character, Junebug, as like a Spike Lee kind of proxy.
Yeah, definitely a perspective I would not have thought of individually.
Yeah.
But I would contend that that is the internal monologue, I would say, of certainly of most Black artists and most Black professionals. It's like, are you real, and are you selling out? Which is kind of stupid. Like, and I'm like, even as you're saying tired, and I'm like, yep, like I hate that I still to this day have moments like that, little less and less as I get closer to my fuck it 50s. I think that is a challenge. That is always the conflict, and that's why so many of us are so excited about what Ryan Coogler's been able to accomplish, which no other Black director has accomplished before ever. Like, he is both Spielberg and Scorsese. He's found a way to be Black, make very Black stuff that's ultimately talking about very Black things, but also people are wearing Halloween costumes for trying to be Black. It used to be people would wear blackface at Halloween, and now they're wearing Black Panther outfits at Halloween. And and so everything he's done he's made scads of money for the studio system, and then he makes a movie like Sinners. And so it's like and so Spike Lee was never able to achieve, his most successful movies are movies like Inside Man, and Black Klansman is probably another one that's pretty, I think, box office successful. I think Jordan Peele produced that one.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, it's a cop story. It's like, it's got genre elements, and I think, yes, I like this take on him being Junebug, but I think there's a bit more Pierre in him, and some of the other characters as well, because I think we all want that.
Yeah.
Too. We want to tell the boss to screw off, and I'm gonna do it my way. But then like your movie flops, and they won't like give you money to make another one. You're like,
right?
I can play ball. I'll make 25th Hour.
right. No, I'm with you. I felt the same way. It's the internal struggle. It's the two voices that are competing to be heard and to influence. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And we'll go into other little details. I mean, one thing, this is quick, that we haven't mentioned yet, but also is a very distinct aesthetic moment of this movie, is the 3D animation.
Yeah.
Oh,
it comes up very briefly.
Yes.
That's among the most uncanny things to watch in this whole movie.
Yeah.
Yet another representation of blackface, of minstrelsy, but also just that animation style, even before you get to that point, is really, like, in 2025, like almost uncomfortable to watch.
Very unsettling.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's very of the moment of 2000. But then I had two other little details I want to mention that both had to do with Sloane. There's one scene where she is confessing to, or with some coercion on Man Ray's part, about her affair with Pierre that has preceded what we see in the film. And there's a moment, I think it's actually, from the moment when Man Ray asks the question to her, to the point that she answers it, there's this jump cut where you see her immediately just kind of much closer to Man Ray in the next shot. In real life, if that were shown in real time, it would have, we'd have had to see her walk over. But then, she's just right there up next to him. And that may be just a very, like, a throwaway moment to most people. But to me, it stood out as a moment of Spike Lee's expert manipulation of the art of montage. It shows the hand of the author in a good way, that kind of jump cut. because, you know, it almost suggests like a little bit of a subjectivity to that scene in the rushedness of it. It makes me think of a movie. Emilio, I know you're a fan of this movie, Audition, the Japanese horror movie from around the same time. I think it was 1999 that it came out.
Yeah.
Where there's like jump cuts are similarly employed to convey subjectivity in that movie. And so I thought maybe there is meaning there, maybe there isn't. But if you read into it, I think there's the possibility of interpreting it that way, especially given, you know, Spike Lee's, you know, manipulation of the art of montage and the lo-fi format of the film. I thought that was a really interesting brief moment.
Cool.
The other thing with Sloane that I quickly want to shout out is just the climactic scene where she mortally wounds Pierre. That right after she does it, you can see she's conflicted and she apologizes. And then Pierre just says, "It's okay," as he sits there dying. And well, there was a moment when we discussed The Man Who Fell to Earth a few months ago, kind of like that in that movie, but
you're right.
That just comes off as off kilter and strange in that movie. In this movie, I feel like it's a very similar moment, and yet I think it's very dramatically compelling.
Yeah, and something that I wouldn't have ever picked up on in the film itself, but that Spike Lee calls out in the commentary, is that Pierre wipes her prints off the gun.
I had the same reaction to that.
Interesting.
I was like, I never would have seen that with my eyes, but
that is interesting.
he calls it out.
Yeah.
I have a couple of really fast details. One, Bill Clinton. I really like that moment.
Oh, I know.
That's funny.
You don't even see his face, do you? It's just the back of his head.
That's the thing.
You kind of
it's
see
like
him turn
you
a
see
bit, but
profile.
Yeah.
Just enough.
It is so like 90s though.
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
My gosh,
It really plants this in the time period.
Yeah.
Also, I learned on the commentary that the didgeridoo auditioner was a grip for the film.
No way.
Who actually played the didgeridoo.
Yeah.
I looked him up. His name is Tony Arnaud. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He also was a grip on Clockers and Inside Man and a bunch of other things. He has like a bunch, like 50 plus grip credits
Nice.
on IMDb. And then, you know, towards the end when Honeycutt is in the audience, talking to all these people in blackface, he talks to a guy who says he's from the Bronx, home of like the World Series winning New York Yankees.
Oh, yeah.
And Spike's like, oh, well, it's a good thing they won because like that year they won. And people talk about the Yankees like that, whether or not they won recently.
Right.
So when I first watched it, I was like, yeah, whatever, we get it.
Yeah.
But it occurred to me after that, like, oh, well, they did win in 2000. When this movie comes out.
Yeah.
But, you know, this would have been filmed and written before they won that year. So I thought that was interesting.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
On the topic of the audience, too, I mean, in the first scene of the first performance we see of the New Millennium Minstrel Show, that watching the audience reactions there, it's a very interesting moment in the film, too, that those extras, their reactions were real.
Yeah.
That, you know, these were not, and Spike Lee says that either on the commentary or one of the bonus features, but that I think it's very believable when you watch it. I was not surprised to learn that. But that it's a mostly white audience who have very conflicted looks on their faces, but there is one black audience member who you can see clearly who is laughing at a lot of it. So I just thought that was a very interesting kind of meta moment in the movie too.
Yeah. The last thing I just want to say is I think however you feel about how heavy-handed it is, I think the very end of this movie is just like an all-time grip you and won't let go. From the James Baldwin quote, which I just, you know, is like just got layers and layers on it, man. But, you know, seeing all of the footage played back just in montage, you're talking about Spike Lee as having a really nice command of montage. It's there as well. We talked about the score. It's really rousing over all of that. The full symphony is going for it. And then you get Bruce Hornsby, Shadowlands, over the figurines, which is just another layer of what's going on in this film. I don't know many movies that leave me feeling as gutted by those credit sequences the way that this movie does.
Spike Lee is good at that.
Yeah.
It's
undeniable.
When you think about like impactful montages at the end of his films, I mean, I also have to think of Malcolm X. It's like
Black Klansman has one too.
Black Klansman has a great one.
Probably his best, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredibly unsettling to watch, but that's why it's so important.
Yeah.
No one does ending montages quite like him.
Speaking of endings,
What would our ending montage be?
that's a good point. I guess we can hop into some unlikely shared universe.
I'm ready.
I'm ready as well. Okay, so we've got a Jada Pinkett Smith over here. You have one too.
Yes.
I purposefully did not choose her because I knew both of you were doing her. And
Yeah.
I told Julian while you were out of the room that I'm not going to tell you who I'm doing because that's, I think, the fun of it. Of who
all
I
right.
chose.
Okay.
I could start because mine's kind of dumb.
Okay.
Go for it.
I'm still happy with it, but in a dumb way. So when Man Ray decides that he's had enough of this act, he refuses to don blackface and ascends to the rafters of the soundstage to tap dance from above. An exacerbated stage manager calls De La and begs him to come wrangle their star performer. However, after seeing the grim end that befalls Man Ray, this stage manager, whose name is Bunning, feels some amount of responsibility and quits the production. But he isn't quite done with show business because he was actually just working this gig on the side while waiting for the funding to come through for his feature film. And as luck would have it, he's finally ready to start production. He catches a bus down in Pennsylvania and makes his way to Camp Towanda to prepare for the arrival of his all-star cast, including Janine Garofalo, David Hyde Pierce, Molly Shannon, and Paul Rudd. Julian's looking at me very confused. When the film premieres at Sundance the following year, it plays 4 times to sold-out crowds. But unfortunately, this is not enough to attract a distributor or, upon its eventual release, impress the critics. But Bunning should not lose faith because someday this film will become a cult classic and he will become a recognizable enough face that my partner Dougie, while watching this film, will do the Leo DiCaprio point and say, "Is that David Wayne?"
I was ready to say David Wayne. That's Wet Hot
wow.
American Summer, right? That's the movie. he does.
I really connected it to our reality.
I
but
love
yes.
that. I love that.
Great. Yeah, it's not often enough that our unlikely shared universes come to just reality.
Yeah.
That's
Well done.
fantastic. I love that.
Does your scenario concern before the movie?
It concerns before the film.
You should go first.
Go
Alrighty.
consecutively.
Yeah.
Here we go. Alrighty. The hesitant participant in a risky and potentially dangerous endeavor, being the voice of reason when things start to go off the rails, mixing work responsibilities and romantic feelings with a well-mannered, well-dressed man, and when she thinks it's necessary, ready to use a gun to prove her point. You could be describing Sloane and the events that unfold in Bamboozled, but I think that Sloane has lived a life like this, the one with higher stakes, about 5 years before. You see, Sloane is originally from Los Angeles, and she went by the name Stoney to those who knew her best. She had some promise as a student, but she opted out of attending college, thinking that her younger brother Stevie was the one of her siblings with higher education aspirations, and she decided to allocate the little money that she and her family had to helping him live out his college dreams. Unfortunately, Stevie is gunned down by the police, incorrectly pegged as the suspect in a bank robbery. This breaks Stoney's will and already eroded trust in the institutions around her. So Stoney, along with her friends and co-workers Cleo, TT, and Frankie, decide that it's time for them to try robbing banks as a way of getting themselves out of their difficult personal and financial troubles. While casing one of the banks, she catches the eye of a handsome banker named Keith, with whom she starts a whirlwind romance, but always keeps him at arm's length for fear that he will learn too much about her and her friends' criminal activities. This life of holding up banks does not last very long, though. I won't go fully into spoiler territory because I want the people at this desk to watch this movie and to appreciate it. But Stoney is lucky to escape with money from police who close in on her and her pals. Stoney hides out in Mexico to make a new plan, and it's here that she uses the cash that she had from that last job to start anew. She finds someone to help her get a new identity, and she makes her way back to the States, eager to make good on the academic promise that she once showed. She's told Keith that she's never been to the East Coast or New York, I believe, but she neglected to tell him that she has an older brother named Julius who's there. He's working odd jobs and becoming more and more committed to a side hustle as a militant rap artist. She stays with him when she's there. She enrolls at NYU and quickly demonstrates her get up and go in an internship at the television network CNS. She becomes an assistant to what appears to be the lone black writer there, Pierre Delacroix. So the events of Bamboozled unfold, and here she is again, having gotten romantically involved with a higher up at work, getting herself involved in a high-risk reputation-taking undertaking, trying to talk some sense into her cohort, and ultimately pulling a gun on him. Of course, her most recent romantic partner, Man Ray, was killed by her brother, who is in turn killed at the hands of the police, the second of her brothers to have suffered this fate. But perhaps some of her frustration at the end of this film stems from the fact that, like the events in the film, history, and in her case, very painful personal history, can't help but repeat itself.
I had a feeling you were going to do this one. I haven't seen the movie, but I know enough to say this is Set It Off.
Yeah.
This is Set It Off.
Yeah.
Yes. I rewatched this movie because we talked about potentially doing it a couple months ago. Set It Off is awesome. Set It Off is really good. Jada Pinkett Smith is Stoney in Set It Off and Sloane in Bamboozled.
And I have a possible continuation of the story of Stoney / Sloane. Those names go well together.
I know.
So, in the latter half of Bamboozled, it's made clear that Sloane Hopkins has been hiding details about her background. Maybe it's the ones that you just laid out for us, Emilio. But in Bamboozled, those details are strictly implied to be about her entanglement with Pierre Delacroix. But perhaps she also hid some information about her educational and professional background. Before meeting Pierre and working for CNS, Sloane's credentials had more to do with criminal justice, which, in a generous interpretation, can be seen as one of her motivations for the final action she takes against Pierre Delacroix, if we don't merely consider that a crime of passion. But, looking to perhaps avenge her brother's murder while avoiding being caught for killing Pierre, Sloane decides to switch coasts and move, say, back home to Los Angeles and re-enter the world of criminal justice upon arrival. She quickly rises through the ranks of that world and becomes recognized on the national level for her aptitude, earning a position as a federal prosecutor for the local U.S. attorney while assuming the professional name Annie Farrell to divert any possible optics having to do with why she left New York. Things seem to go swimmingly for Sloane, or Annie, for quite some time, and one night she happens to get in the cab of a friendly driver named Max on her way to the office and seems to strike up a friendship with him. However, after Max drops Annie off at her destination, a mysterious, sharp-dressed man exits the same building and gets into Max's cab. Max quickly finds out the hard way that his new high-rolling passenger, Vincent, is a hitman, who intends to use Max as his chauffeur for a night of hunting down targets. And over the course of this whirlwind night, Max also finds out that one of said targets is his previous passenger, Annie. Perhaps this predicament is the universe's attempt at retribution for the vile act that ended Annie's former career. Or maybe it's a more mundane misfortune where Annie, or Sloane, or Stoney, has the misfortune of winding up on the wrong list, but the good luck of her new friend Max making an effort towards her rescue and doing what he can in a situation where his presence is otherwise collateral.
Very nice. Yes.
I admittedly, I was looking at your face, Emilio, while I was saying all this.
Yeah.
You reacted the way I hoped you would.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I was mostly there and then was like, when you talked about getting in the cab, I'm like,
yep.
boom. There it is.
I think both Collateral and Set It Off are movies we should aim to cover someday.
I think so too. I also kind of like, I could see a world where all three of these are interrelated.
Yeah.
Bamboozled, Set It Off,
Fun.
and Collateral.
Yeah.
Idris, do you have anything you want to contribute on that front, or?
No, I just enjoy. You guys are masters of this. I'm just enjoying myself.
Oh man, well that's very sweet of you to say, guys. We did it. We had a conversation about Bamboozled. I feel like this is a movie where we could have like 5 more of these.
It's just such a rich text.
Yeah, it is.
Really is.
It really is. Yeah,
and it's unforgettable.
Like, it really is.
Even
Truly.
if you don't like it or whatever, like it really is, like you said, something about you can't wait to see it again, because it really is. It's really alive because the soil is the subject matter is just like so fertile. He's sort of filmmaker, journalist, documentarian, history keeper, griot. Like he's a one of one.
Yeah,
He's not just like a movie maker in that traditional sense. he's doing something closer to what James Baldwin did, but just using movies as the vehicle. But he's just doing more. He's just like no one. I can't think of anyone else who has like that level of sophistication and understanding of the medium. So it's not like he's not like, you know, the playwright who wrote The Normal Heart, Larry Kramer, who's like, no, I'm talking about a social issue, right? I don't care. It's just like he does so much sophisticated stuff, but will also just straight up show you people on the roof in Katrina and like, it's just hard stuff, you know, and juxtapose it in this way. So, yeah. Anytime you guys are doing anything with Spike Lee, and I'm not saying I got to be your first call, but I shouldn't be the last one.
I think it's safe to say, Idris, that you will be our first call.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for everybody at this table, but
no, you can speak for me. Yeah.
Cheer at everybody.
And fun fact, you just mentioned Larry Kramer. I am distantly related to him.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's a second cousin of my grandfather on my mom's side. I think a second cousin. Yeah. I never got to meet Larry Kramer. I think my mom only got to meet him once, but yeah, just a fun fact.
Wow.
I wasn't ready for that. That's kind of that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Anything anybody else wants to say about Bamboozled, just to wrap up our thoughts?
Well, I think both Emilio and Idris, you said things at the top of the discussion about how this movie led you to some very profound personal reflection after watching it. And I think it speaks to the, you know, to call back a phrase from earlier, the transcendent humanism of Spike Lee, that I kind of feel like, you know, even, you know, from, you know, watching the movie as a viewer whose lived experience, you know, I can't relate to the experience that informs the film. I do think it's been very moving to consider it, to engage with the discourse around it. I think I've been compelled towards a lot of very deep personal reflection in the wake of this. I'm sure that, you know, in listening back to this episode and continuing to read Ashley Clark's book, that's only going to continue. And I think that, to your point, Idris, about how, you know, just how Spike Lee really reaches across all of culture, that I think this is, you know, to engage with this movie has been a real, in some ways, awakening, or some ways reawakening, in some ways just an awakening of my point of view about many aspects of the culture we live with. And I think I'm going to continue considering that very deeply in the aftermath of this discussion. So I'm very grateful to have engaged with this movie, to have heard your insights about it, Idris, and thank you, Emilio, for suggesting it. I think this is like a true from the heart suggestion that I warmly receive.
Yeah. I mean, this has been a long time coming, as we said up top, and I had a really great time discussing this film, and I will definitely be revisiting it. I think it, as you said, Idris, it's a film that I will remember always. I think, you know, it's a film that is going to stick with me. I believe that. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your guys' openness to engaging with this. Idris, thank you so much for
it's a pleasure, guys.
Bringing your perspectives and for hanging with us. I know we've got a time difference that's favorable for you, but still hanging with us. It's still late. Thank you. I greatly appreciate that.
Of course. No, this is a real treat.
Yeah, no, and I will just say too, you know, I think you said it earlier, Idris, that like, I think when you're talking about Spike Lee, like this is one of the 5 films you have to talk about. Like, I think there's a lot of really personal reflection that's going into this. And so, yeah, for that reason, I agree. I'm going to come back to this at some point. I'll say this too, like in reflecting on this so much, you know, I'm one of these crazy people that collects physical media. I know you guys at the table here do a little bit of that too. Yeah. Idris, I don't know about you, but like I have this movie on Blu-ray, and you know, one of the reasons I'm collecting physical media is because I love having a physical, tangible document of the stuff that I love, the stuff that's meaningful to me.
Sorry, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I have it.
It's not like, is it streaming somewhere? You're like,
yeah.
You can watch this whenever you want.
Whenever I want.
I got it.
And another reason too, and this sounds kind of silly and maybe a little like self-important, but you know, I want something like this for my son. I want him to know what kind of art was meaningful to me. And so this is a film that I know at some point I'm going to sit down and watch with my son, and we'll have conversations about. I truly feel that way about this movie, in a way that, you know, I feel also about Do the Right Thing, you know? So it's an undeniable movie. So yeah. Idris, are there any things you want to plug real quick? Anything you want to tell our listeners about where they can find you, what you're up to?
Sure. Well, just, you know, I'm very findable. If you go to my link tree, I got a link tree. I'm on all the socials. But yeah, as mentioned before, I have a if you liked a movie with Black characters existing in the year 2000, check out my YA novel. It's a YA novel, but it's really for anybody who likes to read. I think it's a good story, and it's written in a very unique way. And it's all about hip hop and neurodiversity and human connection and summer school and all that good stuff. So it's called King of the Neuroverse. It's available for pre-order. Comes out October 14th. And I'll be touring around with it a little bit, doing readings of it. I probably won't get to the East Coast until 2026, but catch me in these streets.
Yeah.
I love that title.
Part 2 of Bamboozled conversation.
Yeah. I love that.
Bomb, baby.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What are we talking about now? What are we watching next, guys?
Yeah, so if you know our usual flow of episodes, we've just had our suggestion box, and up next is our two-shot, where we take two movies with a lot of striking similarities and talk about them in conjunction. And continuing with this cycle of audience interrogation, we're going to talk about two movies that have some uncanny similarities in depicting characters who are journalists of one kind or another. One of those films is Nightcrawler, directed and written by Dan Gilroy from 2014, starring Jake Gyllenhaal in one of, I think, his central performances. Like, you know, we're talking about 5 essential Spike Lee films. I think if you have to name 5 essential Jake Gyllenhaal performances, that would be one of them.
Sure.
And then we're also going to be talking a more recent film, which is Alex Garland's Civil War from just last year, 2024.
Yes.
Starring Kirsten Dunst as the aforementioned journalist, and also Wagner Moura, Kaylee Spaney, and Stephen McKinley Henderson, among others.
I'm super excited for this.
Yes. And I think that was we've alluded to it a little already in this conversation. I thought a fascinating film to watch. I think that inspires a lot of different reactions amongst viewers. But, well, Madeline, you and I are going in cold on the Nightcrawler front.
Yeah,
so.
Indeed we are.
And I'm the one going in cold on Civil War. So,
and our guest, I believe, is going in cold on both. So
yes.
It'll be a real fun convo.
Yeah. You'll hear us talk about it 2 weeks after the release of this episode. It'll be a great time.
Totally. In addition to this podcast, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can contact us via email. We would love to hear from you. Write to us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. If you're on Letterboxd, you can follow me, Madeline, at Patroness of Cats.
And you can follow me, Julian, at Julian_Barthold, if only I have updated my Letterboxd to the present by the time this comes out, which I hope I have.
Idris, are you on Letterboxd?
I am. I just got on it recently.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What is your handle?
I think it might be Good Flicks.
That's good.
Yeah, I think the last thing I was working on is a list of best uses of voiceover, best movies driven by voiceover. I was waiting for my plane to take off.
Nice.
I want to check out your list, so I will definitely be. I got to get on
Making
Letterboxd.
a letterbox.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that at some point.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I can only spread my. You know how this goes, Idris. You can only spread your time in so many different places.
Yeah. So. If you are listening to us for the first time, thank you for finding us. Or if this is the 5th, 6th, or 60th, or 70th time you've listened to us, thank you for sticking with us. We have really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we'd ask you, return listener, to please write us a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots. You can tell a friend to tell a friend about the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, because that helps too.
Feed the idiot box.